You know, usually 13 is an unlucky number, but it was pretty lucky for me this past week because I had a perfect week, baby. 16 and 0. How do you like that, folks? 16 and 0 in week 13, 136 and 59 on the season, 93 and 24 since week 6. What a run it's been. What a streak I'm on, man. And week 14, I hope to continue it, man. Let's keep it going. And if I'm not mistaken, this is the last week for buys. We got 6 teams on the bye, as you see on the screen right here. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's the last week of buys. Large majority of the teams have had the bye, and we had a full week last week. And there's 6 games, so 13 games this week. So yeah, pretty sure that this is the last week for the buys. So let's not waste any more time and let's get on to it. These are my week 14 picks of the 2024 NFL season. And starting things off right off the bat on Thursday night, we got, in my opinion, my rivalry of the week, part 2. The Green Bay Packers heading to Detroit to face the Lions, as the Packers and Lions are both coming off the Thanksgiving Day wins. Green Bay got it done over the Dolphins, while the Lions had a win against the Bears that Chicago probably should have won, in my opinion. But that's besides the point. Anyway, when these two met a couple weeks ago in Green Bay, Detroit won 24-14. But don't let that score fool you. I thought Green Bay hung in there pretty well, and on both sides of the ball as well. They outgained Detroit in total yards in that game, and I think Green Bay's defense did what they could, but they just couldn't really find a rhythm, as Jordan Love was not 100% in that game, and I think that's a thing that a lot of people are overlooking. As for the Lions, they have won 10 straight games. They are 11-1 on the season. So this one was pretty difficult for me to decide, actually, as I think this is I think this is a 50-50 game right here. I really think that either team can win this game, seeing that Green Bay is going to want to remember their loss to Detroit a few weeks back, while the Lions are going to want to complete the sweep. But I think I'm going to lean more towards Green Bay in this game, actually. I think the Packers go to Detroit and pull off the win here, simply because now you got Jordan Love at 100% for this game, and you got Green Bay's defense that played Detroit really well. I thought the Bears really just blew that opportunity against Detroit. And not saying that the Lions shouldn't have lost that game, but I think they just got incredibly lucky due to the incompetence of the Bears. And now they're going up against a Green Bay team that's going to want to avoid the sweep. And plus, last year, both the road teams won the matchups in this game, in this matchup here. So I am actually going to lean towards the Cheeseheads to get the split against the Lions and keep the pressure on in the NFC. So give me Green Bay here. All right, we got my matchup for the Sunday slate of games. We got the Cleveland Browns and the Pittsburgh Steelers, round 2 in Pittsburgh. 3-9 for the Browns, 9-3 for the Steelers. Obviously, these two met a week and a half ago in Pittsburgh, or in Cleveland rather, in that blizzard game that the Browns won 24-19, thanks to our dumbass head coach declining the penalty and then changing his mind, accepting it, and then inexplicably calling a timeout. Tomlin handed the Browns that game there. I mean, sure, Winston had a good game against us, and the Browns defense really came to play, but they let up at the wrong time as they got back-to-back touchdown drives against us, or we had back-to-back touchdown drives against them, and then we also forced 3 turnovers. Coaching and play calling cost that game for us. But now the Browns are heading to Pittsburgh, where the Browns historically struggle at. And that's putting it lightly. They've only beaten the Steelers 7 times in Pittsburgh since 1970. I mean, that's just, wow, domination at its fullest. And the Browns are coming off a gut-wrenching loss to the Broncos on Monday night, where Jameis Winston had the most Cleveland Browns moment ever, and isn't that saying a handful? He set a record for the most passing yards in Browns history with 497 passing yards against the Denver Broncos, and he had 4 touchdown passes. Oh, no, wait, I'm sorry. He actually had 6 touchdown passes. Why? Because 2 of those touchdown passes went to the Broncos. And then just for the heck of it, he threw a game-losing interception in the end zone when it was 41-32 Denver at that point. So, yeah, good old Jameis Winston. He's the equivalent of being a limousine driver with 12 points on your driver's license. That's what Jameis Winston is. As for us, 44-38, we win it over the Bengals. And that score really is not indicative to how close that game was, in my opinion. We had a 17-point lead against Cincinnati, and they got 2 touchdowns while we settled for a field goal in the waning moments. And then a brilliant play call on that 3rd down for us sealed the game right there. We should have won the game, in my opinion, by at least 10 points. It should have been like 44-31, but JPJ, on top of getting cooked, he also had the game-clinching interception go through his hands in the end zone. So, very next play, I believe Cincinnati got a touchdown. So, that's just it right there as far as the Steelers went. Russell Wilson cooked, absolutely. 414 passing yards for him. And he had that pick 6 that shouldn't have happened, in my opinion, because the Bengals got away with a defensive pass interference on that pick 6. Shouldn't have happened. But regardless, we got the win. We're 9-3 on the season. I will say this, even though the Browns are 3-9, Jameis Winston has injected life in Cleveland's offense, but their defense still gives up a lot of big plays, and that was seen in the Thursday game that we had a couple weeks ago against them because, like I said, back-to-back touchdown drives for the Steelers. And then, of course, the Browns are very sloppy with the ball as well. 3 turnovers on the day. And I feel like if we're able to cause some turnovers here and the offense can get in sync here for this game like we did against Cincinnati, we can come away with this win. I don't see the Browns sweeping us. I do think they can make it a good game just because it's a divisional game. And, the Browns, they've given the Steelers a tough time lately, but I think it's just going to be classic AFC North style football with the Pittsburgh Steelers rolling away with the win to go to 10-3. And then we pack up our stuff, concluding our stretch of 4 straight divisional games. You got to take 3-1 in that stretch. If you're a Steeler fan, you got to be happy with that at least. And then we pack up our stuff. We head on to Eastern Pennsylvania for by far our toughest game on the schedule, in my opinion, which is at the Eagles. I've been saying it all year. That is the game that I am the most afraid of, and that is the toughest game on the schedule, in my opinion. But first, we got to take care of business. I'm going to say we get it done over the Cleveland Browns in Pittsburgh to go to 10-3. So give me my guys to do it once again. Next up, we got the New Orleans Saints and the New York Giants going at it in Jersey as the Saints lost a tough one to the Rams at home once again. As the Saints, their season is pretty much done. I mean, it's basically been done since that 7-game losing streak. And yes, this is my first of 3. That's right, 3 toilet bowls this week. You'll know the others when you see them. But anyway, the Saints, their season's basically done. The Giants, in my opinion, they're the worst team in the NFL. They are going to be tanking for a quarterback in the 2025 draft. So, again, it's just a situation where I got to pick a team. I'm going to take the Saints to win here just because I think they have a little bit more to offer than the Giants do. And I just can't trust the Giants to win a game. So I'm going to take the Saints to win this one. Then we got the New York Jets and the Miami Dolphins in Miami, as the Jets statistically have one of the most disappointing seasons in NFL history at 3-9. I mean, the Jets, they're always going to suck. They're always going to be irrelevant, no matter who they have. I am truly convinced of it. They are just a complete waste of a franchise. And they're flying on down to Miami to play the Dolphins, who are coming off a bad loss to the Packers on Thanksgiving night, where the Dolphins had to endure that cold weather in Lambeau. But now the Dolphins are flying back on down home to Miami, where they got the warm weather in their advantage. And I don't care, regardless of what kind of weather the Jets play in. The Dolphins, fact of the matter is, since they got off to that slow start, they've been playing much better football lately. And they just always seem to get the best of the Jets. So I'm going to go ahead and take the Miami Dolphins to win this one over the Jets. So yeah, Miami, I think they keep up their streak. They stay alive in the playoff hunt. The Jets, their miserable season continues, and I have no doubt that Aaron Rodgers will not be a Jet in 2025. He should retire. I'm taking the Dolphins to beat the Jets. Next up, toilet bowl number 2, and it could be the toilet bowl of the year. The Jacksonville Jaguars and the Tennessee Titans. Yeah. Need I say more for this matchup here? The Jaguars and the Titans. Firstly, I want to say this about Trevor Lawrence. I hope to God that he's okay. That was a very vicious hit that he took from Al Shair. I think that's what his name is on the Texans. I'm terrible with names, but he was sliding, he gave himself up, and then he hit him late. And he had a concussion, I think, in that game, and he got taken out. Hopefully he's doing okay, but regardless, Jacksonville is just a complete dumpster fire, man. Tennessee, they've had a miserable season as well, but I think the defining thing with my pick here is that while Tennessee is horrendous, and they've definitely had their fair share of terrible games this year, Tennessee has had some games that they've been in where they honestly could have won. And, the common thing with both these teams is that they both got absolutely demolished by the Detroit Lions. I think both these teams allowed 52 points when they both played Detroit. How do you like that? So this is the who sucks less bowl, in my opinion. But, yeah, I can't trust Jacksonville to win a game, so I'm going to take Tennessee by default here, simply because they're the home team and because, like I said, Tennessee's been awful this year, but they've at least lost games that they should have won. Jacksonville, they're just terrible all around. I'm taking Tennessee to win it over the Jaguars. Next up, we got the Atlanta Falcons going on up to Minneapolis to play the Vikings, as Kirk Cousins makes his return to Minnesota. And Kirk Cousins may very well be the reason that Atlanta is just in free fall mode right now, and why they may actually miss out on clinching the NFC South, despite the fact that they swept the Tampa Bay Bucs. Ever since that Seahawks game, Atlanta has just been in disarray. And in that game against the Chargers, Kirk Cousins threw 4 interceptions. Granted, LA does have a very good defense. I think they are the number 1 scoring defense in the NFL. But Atlanta, they are slumping at the worst possible time. It is now the month of December, and this is where your margin of error is very, very limited. Atlanta is just handing the NFC South away, and it doesn't help either that they're going on up to Minnesota to play the Vikings, who aren't an amazing team by any means, but you know what? The Vikings find ways to win. You know, they're not a team that's really going to beat you up. They're not a team that's going to overwhelm you. But the Vikings, they just find ways to win. And they are a very resilient bunch. And I think Minnesota, while I don't see them being in the Super Bowl, I don't see them even going to the NFC Championship. I think their ceiling, in my opinion, probably is the NFC Championship, but I think the furthest the Vikings go, in my opinion, is the divisional round. But regardless, I'm going to take the Vikings to win this one. This is just bad news for Atlanta here. Like I said, Kirk Cousins, 4 interceptions against the Chargers. Now he's going up against Brian Flores' defense. And if there's one thing that Brian Flores has done phenomenal all year, it's that he has schemed so well against opposing offenses. And seeing that they're going up against the Vikings' old quarterback now, I have literally no doubt Flores is going to know all the strengths and weaknesses of Kirk Cousins. Give me Minnesota to win this one here. Then we got the Carolina Panthers at the Philadelphia Eagles. This one is in Philly. Need I say more? I'm locking up the Eagles this week. This was the easiest one by far. Carolina's been feisty, but let's be honest. They give up a lot of yards on the ground. And them going up against Saquon Barkley, who, in my opinion, is my vote for MVP in all honesty, and Philadelphia's high-flying offensive air attack, and the Eagles, who lead the league in total defense. Yeah, Carolina, you're going to need all the luck in the world to win this one, but it ain't happening. Philly, my lock of the week, moving on. We got up next the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and they are taking on the Las Vegas Raiders at home. And this was a rematch. I'm always going to cherish a matchup between these two here because it reminds me of Super Bowl 37, which was the first Super Bowl that I remember sitting down watching. But, it's decades later, and this is anything but a Super Bowl rematch right now. But anyway, Raiders and the Bucs. This one is in Tampa. Vegas, they lost a close game to Kansas City. And of course, in typical Chiefs luck fashion, Raiders had a bad snap on a potential game-winning play, and the Chiefs were able to recover and win. And Vegas just continues to be just a completely miserable team, and they're 2-10 on the season. While the Bucs, they got it done over the Carolina Panthers in overtime, a game in which the Bucs trailed throughout much of that game, and then Chase McLaughlin hit a field goal as time expired to send the game to overtime. Bucs spoiled a chance in OT, as did Carolina, and then they got in a field goal range. Chase McLaughlin wasted no time to win the game for Tampa. And there you go with that right there. Like I mentioned with the Falcons and the Vikings, Atlanta's given away the NFC South. Next in line to take that division would be Tampa. And I think it would just be the funniest thing ever if the Bucs won the NFC South despite getting swept by Atlanta. That would just be hilarious. But, I think if there's a get it right game for Tampa, it's definitely this one right here because Vegas's defense is just putrid, and Baker Mayfield definitely is capable of lighting up a stat sheet and lighting up a scoreboard. So Vegas, they just got really nothing going for them here, despite the fact that Tampa's defense really isn't great either. I really don't think it'll matter. I'm going to go with the Bucs to win this one here and creep up closer on Atlanta in the NFC South. The Raiders, I just don't know how anyone can pick them to win a game at this point, seeing that how awful they are. While Tampa, they just have something to play for. So, yeah, I'm going to go with the Bucs to win this one over the Raiders and keep the pressure on in the NFC South. Later slate of games on Sunday. First up, we got the Seattle Seahawks flying on down to Arizona to play the Cardinals, as the Seahawks are leaning the NFC West at 7-5. This game could determine who wins that division. How crazy does that sound? The Seahawks and the Cardinals. So one thing I got to say about Seattle is that they're a resilient team too. They did not have a good game against the Jets, but they rallied back and they were able to stun the Jets, as that was Aaron Rodgers' first loss of his entire career where his team was leading by 14 or more points in the fourth quarter. And Seattle got it done. He's now 75-1 in such games. That just shows how resilient Seattle is, and that shows how much of a dumpster fire the Jets are. So there you go with Seattle right there. They have played tough defensively lately, and that's the thing that worries me most about the Seahawks is what kind of defense are we going to get? But Seattle is a physical type of defense. They are grimy, and if they are completely on their A game, they can definitely keep an opponent out of the end zone, as it was highlighted in that game against Arizona they had a couple weeks ago. They kept Arizona out of the end zone, held them to 2 field goals. And I think Seattle, they can definitely have that defensive formula again for this game here, as the Cardinals, they are 6-6, and I do credit them for playing way better than what I anticipated them to be. But the thing about the Cardinals, and I think a lot of people can agree, is that they just completely lack consistency. And if they do get in the playoffs, I just don't see them making a lot of noise. They could make noise offensively, but their defense is definitely going to hold them back. And going up against Geno Smith, who, believe it or not, leads the league in passing yards, it's trouble for Arizona. So I was torn on this one, honestly, but I think I'm going to go with the Seahawks to complete the sweep here, because I do like Seattle's defense stepping up here, and I think they can have that. Like I said, I think they can have that formula against the Cardinals like they did a couple weeks ago. I just think also offensively, it's just too much for Arizona to handle. So yeah, I'm going to go Seattle in a close game and defeat the Cardinals, like I said, in a pretty tight one here. But yeah, I'm going to go with Seattle to win this one. Next, we got the Chicago Bears and the San Francisco 49ers. This one is in San Francisco. Well, this one is actually tricky as well, as the Bears are just in complete disarray. They find new ways to lose every single week. They've lost 6 straight games, and they found another incredible way to lose on Thanksgiving against Detroit, like I said at the beginning. As the Bears were driving, the clock was running, they had a chance to tie or win the game against Detroit with timeouts remaining, and Matt Eberflus decides not to call a timeout. And then in his press conference, he said that he felt that he did the right thing. Yeah, pal. No, you didn't. And that's why you don't have a job right now. So Thomas Brown is now interim head coach of the Chicago Bears. And I don't know. The Bears defensively, they're strong, but I just don't know if I can fully just trust them. I mean, they are just so bad, and it just never seems to end with them. For the 49ers, they're 5-7. They've dropped 3 in a row, and the season is quickly fading away for San Francisco, as they just have a ton of injuries, man. It's looking like 2020 all over again for San Francisco. Some people are calling for Kyle Shanahan to be fired. I mean, I don't know what Kyle Shanahan's supposed to do. I mean, the 49ers you can make an all-pro team with the injuries they have. And people are blaming Kyle Shanahan for it. I don't know what the guy's supposed to do with all these injuries. He's doing the best that he can. So I think that's dumb. I think people need to lay off of him. Absolutely. And just to make matters worse, CMC is out for the season. And then you also got Jordan Mason on IR. But good news for the 49ers fans is that Nick Bosa is going to return in this game for the 49ers. And like I said, this one was tricky for me to pick because I am losing faith in San Francisco this season, seeing that they've lost 2 consecutive games by 25 or more points, and then they blew it against the Seahawks a few weeks ago. But, man, the Bears are just awful. So I don't know who to go with, so I'm going to take the home team, which are the 49ers. I think they'll temporarily stop the bleeding here, but I'm not really thinking that the 49ers are going to make a big run at season's end. I just don't know with all the injuries they have, but I am going to go San Francisco to win this one. I think Nick Bosa wreaking havoc on that Chicago O-line and making Caleb Williams really work in the pocket is going to be the difference in this game here. So I'm going to go San Francisco to win. Then we got the Buffalo Bills flying on out to SoFi to play the Rams. As Buffalo, they continue to look like juggernauts in the AFC. They are 10-2 on the season. And they were the team that blew the doors off of the 49ers on Sunday Night Football 35-10. Josh Allen had that ridiculous touchdown basically to himself where he threw a quick pass, then a backwards pass to him, and Allen dove for the pylon, and he dove for the marker to score. What a play by Josh Allen, man. He is definitely an MVP candidate. I'll even go as far as say that he's the best quarterback in the NFL right now. But, Buffalo is playing incredibly well. They clinched the AFC East for the 5th consecutive season. And Buffalo, they are going to be a very tough team to beat in the playoffs. I think this is the best version of Sean McDermott's Bills that we've seen ever since he became head coach and since Josh Allen became the starting quarterback. Yeah, so to me, if Buffalo doesn't at least make the Super Bowl this season, then it's a wasted season. That's my opinion. But Buffalo is playing incredibly well. They're 10-2 on the season. As for the Rams, I'm not ready to give up on them yet, as they got a win in New Orleans against the Saints. But the problem with the Rams is, like the 49ers, they have just been beaten up all season too. And then they got to that stretch where they played really well, but I don't know really if it's sustainable for the Rams right now. I think they just dug themselves into too much of a hole. And remember, the last time that these two played, it was week 1 of 2022 when the Rams were the defending champs and the Bills flew out to SoFi and they absolutely mollywopped the Rams on national TV. I think Buffalo wins this game again, but I don't think it's going to be to that extent of a blowout right there. But I do have Buffalo winning this one here. I just think the Bills have too much firepower on offense, and I just don't think the Rams have enough to counter it. So I'm going to take Buffalo to win it over the Rams. This is my game of the week right here. I think this is going to be a great game. Sunday Night Football. Check your local listings. We got the Chargers and the Chiefs at Arrowhead. Yeah, this is my game of the week right here. It was between this and Packers-Lions for being my game of the week. So I decided to make Packers-Lions my rivalry of the week, and I decided to make this my game of the week. But you can't go wrong with either one. Chargers and the Chiefs. LA continues to play well defensively. They are the number 1 scoring defense in the NFL. 4 interceptions off of Kirk Cousins, and their run game continues to be stout, and they are really making a case for being the number one wildcard team in the AFC, and for good reason. LA has just played very well, and like I said, I think a lot of people are sleeping on them. They could be a tough team to beat in the playoffs. As for Kansas City, they wrapped up yet another playoff spot, but honestly, I'm not impressed really with Kansas City this season. They're 11-1. They're in the playoffs again, which we knew anyway, but Kansas City has not really looked like themselves all season. And like I said, yes, they're getting wins, which is important, but if they continue these wins where they're basically relying on dumb luck and they're relying on their defense to carry the load, Kansas City's not going to go back to the Super Bowl. I mean, that's just how it is. They struggled against Carolina a few weeks ago, and we all know how bad the Panthers are. And then they struggled against the Raiders as well. Okay? That's just how it is for Kansas City. I don't know if I can consciously sit down here and say that Kansas City is a Super Bowl team. I really don't. Look, I think the furthest Kansas City goes this year is probably the AFC Championship again. But if Kansas City is not careful, they can easily go one and done. That's just what I'm saying. So I think if the Chiefs are to win, Travis Kelce needs to be himself against the Chargers, because Travis Kelce does have a history of just wreaking havoc against the Chargers. But even so, I really don't think that can be the difference here. Because when these two met earlier in the season, the Chiefs won on, guess what? A controversial moment. And the Chargers defense held them at bay for as much as they possibly could. And I literally have no reason to believe the Chargers won't do that again in this game. I think LA's defense is going to be especially stout and especially physical in this game here. And I think they're really going to find a way to make Patrick Mahomes work. And they're really going to find a way to limit Kansas City's incredibly underwhelming offensive performance this year. So, this is my game of the week, but get a load of this. I'm making this a 3-for-1. I am taking the Chargers to upset the Chiefs, and this is also my point spread of the week. I am taking the Chargers to upset the Chiefs, and I am also making this my spread of the week. I'm taking LA to cover against the Chiefs, and I have LA winning this game by a final of 21-17. I think the Chargers will absolutely do enough on offense to win this game. I have LA winning in the trenches being my key here. I have the Chargers run game being a key here, and I have their defense limiting Kansas City's offense as much as possible being the biggest component here. Also, Mahomes has been uncharacteristically turnover prone this season. I think if the Chargers win the turnover battle here, they are golden to win this matchup here. So yeah, my upset and spread this week, 21-17, Chargers win it in Arrowhead. Wrapping up week 14, toilet bowl number 3. And it's Monday Night Football in Dallas between the Bengals and the Cowboys. Cincinnati is 4-8. They lost 44-38 to the Steelers at home, a game in which the Bengals offense absolutely, sorry about that, I just had a little hiccup attack, but yeah, as I was saying, the Bengals just had a really good offensive game, but like I said, let down by the defense again, and they just could not stop the Steelers whatsoever as far as the offense went. But yeah, just a really disappointing loss for the Bengals, and they're 4-8, and they literally cannot afford to lose another game, or else their season is basically over, and I think it is. As for the Cowboys, they won on Thanksgiving. But I mean, come on, the Giants suck. You know, Cowboys finally getting that home win. And, with Dallas, they do have offensive pieces and they do still have semblance of being a top offensive team, but they just really haven't lived up to par with it this season. And the defense has been especially bad this season. Granted, they've been injured defensively, but still, Cowboys have just been completely dominated on their defense this year. So my key with this one here is that Cincinnati just needs to go berserk on Dallas's defense here, which we know the Bengals are more than capable of doing, seeing that Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase are putting together their best seasons respectively. And then as for the Dallas Cowboys, I mean, they absolutely have to have a big game against Cincinnati's defense. This is a matchup of two awful defenses going at it here. So in the end, I think I'm going to lean with the Bengals to win this one here, simply because they have a more defined offense, and Dallas, they just will not have much of an answer in stopping the dynamic duo of Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow. And that is my biggest X factor in this one here. So I'm going to go Cincinnati to win it over the Cowboys and temporarily keep their very faint playoff hopes alive at 5-8. And this should most likely end Dallas's season. As, like I said, Toilet Bowl number 3 definitely goes out with a bang, but I'm going to take the Bengals to win here. That'll do it. Those are my Week 14 picks, and hopefully I can go 13-0, and let's keep it rolling, man. Let me know what you think. This is Mac checking on out for the day. Have a good one, everybody.